Hello everyone, welcome back. So now you have your Derby database downloaded and installed somewhere, either in the Java 8 SDK or wherever you put it if you're using Java 9. And you know where the bin and lib directories are, and you know where the ij.bat and the derby.jar files are. So now we're going to talk about connecting this to a project in your IDE. In Blackboard, there is a zip file associated with this lesson, and that zip file has three files in it: a database.properties, a data.dbtest.java, and a sniff.sql. We're going to be doing a sniff test right now. So I want you to create a project in your IDE. I'm going to be using Eclipse. In this item in Blackboard is also a document by a student who goes over pretty much the same information, but from an IntelliJ perspective. And I want you to go on and stop this video, and I want you to create your project. I want you to open the zip file, and I want you to download those three files. The Java dbtest.java file should go in your source folder in the default package, and the database.properties and the sniff.sql should be in the root of your project. And this is true for both Eclipse and IntelliJ. So take a minute to do that, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, I assume that you've got your project and your JavaDB test code right here, and your database.properties and your sniff.sql. We'll go through these files in just a minute. The first thing is that you have to connect your project to the JavaDB database system. We'll be using an embedded database. And this is where IntelliJ's configuration is philosophically the same, but a little different from Eclipse. So if you're using IntelliJ, go through that document. In Eclipse, I'm going to right-click on my project and go down to Properties. I'm going to click on the Java build path, Libraries, and I'm going to add an external jar. And you can see this already comes up to my Derby lib folder. I've been here before. So this is the jar file, the Java archive that you'll want to add to your build path. This is for embedded Derby access. So I'll just click open there. I'm going to be using the downloaded version of Derby from Apache, even though I'm running on Java 8 and perfectly good Java database package is built into the JDK. But I'm going to use the downloaded version. Once I have that here, I can just click apply and close. So now I have to open up a command line window. I know everybody's loving command line windows, but programmers use them a lot. And I have changed my current directory. I use the cd command to get into the root of my project. So this project is this folder right there. And if I do a dir, you can see that I have my database.properties and my sniff.sql command. Now I want to use a little utility that comes with Derby to initialize and populate my database. So I'll show you how that runs first, and then we'll talk about how it does what it does. More than likely, your Derby bin directory is not in your class path, so we'll just have to dig it out and execute it the hard way. Learn to use the tab key. It does file completion for you. So it'll be in C:\\\/ Derby is where I put mine. And if I just hit the tab key, Windows will start scrolling through all the applicable file completions that are possible. And there's only one file in the Derby, or only one folder in the Derby folder, which is DB Derby, etc. So I'll do \bin, and I can hit the tab key. Well, nothing happens because it's already complete. And I can type, I can type ij. It will execute the ij.bat program in that folder. And so I can type ij and I can give it sniff.sql as a command line argument. And when I hit enter, it'll take a little while, but it will create a Derby database and execute the commands that are in that sniff.sql file. So now ij finishes and exits, and if I do a dir, we can see that I have something new in my folder here. It is CSC251. If I go to my project and refresh it, this folder shows up. That is my Derby database. So let's look at this sniff.sql file that I gave as a command line argument to the ij command. Whenever you run ij, and we'll run it interactively in just a few minutes, you first need to connect to a Derby database. This connect command says my protocol is JDBC, my subprotocol or product, if you will, is Derby, my database name is CSC251, and if that database does not exist, create it. If it does exist, use what's there. These next two commands should be familiar SQL commands, especially to anyone who's had DBA 120. I create a table called simple test. It has one column in it, which is 20 characters long. It's called name. I then insert into simple test a new row with the value Juliet. And then I execute the exit command from ij. Notice that all commands in ij have to end in a semicolon. If you ever see ij just sitting there staring at you, hit semicolon and enter, and you may have forgotten that on a previous command. So this is what I executed, and now I can look at my program. And in my JavaDB test program, the first thing we see is that I'm setting up a properties file based on a file database.properties. If I look at the database.properties file, I see it has two properties in it. One is jdbc.url and one is jdbc.driver. This URL must match, well, maybe not the create true, but the JDBC Derby CSC251 must match the connect that we use to create the database. Otherwise, we're looking in the wrong place, or we're telling our Java program to look in the wrong place. And we also see that we are using an embedded driver. We'll get in that we are not going to go to the trouble to set up a real database with a port and connection and so forth. We'll just make our database a series of files and we'll execute those methods directly. So this is my database.properties. My database test code is going to get the JDBC URL, use that to create a connection with the driver manager, the database driver manager, and we are going to create a statement we are going to execute select splat from simple test, get the next record, which will be the first one returned, and we're going to print the name column. And finally, we're going to execute an insertion into simple test. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Notice that I want to shut down my database. That will have to be done in a try-catch block. So let's run this and just see what happens. And if I run that as a Java application, I get back the Juliet, which is what we inserted into the database using IJ, and I get back the nice comforting message that says Derby was shut down normally. Although we did notice that after I printed off what was in that database column, I executed an insert. So let's go see if we can figure out what our database looks like. Now, I said that the first thing we have to do, and we're going to run IJ interactively, is we have to connect to the correct database. So let me be lazy and just copy that connect statement from my sniff.sql file. I will run Derby, the IJ command, but without any command line argument. And so IJ runs, it's just sitting there. I will paste in that copied connect statement, and I get a message saying that the database was not created because it connected to an existing database. I can then, here I can just enter SQL commands, select splat from, and what was that table name? Simple test. Select splat from simple test, semicolon. And here I get two rows, Juliet and Romeo, which is what I hope to get. I do need to exit, and I need to spell that correctly. So hopefully you can run this with no particular problems. This will give you a sniff test that you really can connect a Java project in your IDE, Java code, create a database, and populate it using the IJ command and SQL statements like this, and then connect and then run your Java code with an appropriately configured properties file to access your database from Java. Hope this helps. See you later.